My Life as a Teenage Bot Newman Device, Last Chapter. Epilogue by Solomon Grundy. Sheldon awoke to a spicy smell of something cooking. No, baking. Something sweet. Cinnamon? Cinnamon rolls? He loves cinnamon rolls. He was in bed. His bed. Sheldon sat up, throwing off the seat, and he touched his face with his hand. His human hand. He was human again. Wait, the fight with Britt. Oh no. Was he dead?
Come downstairs.
The words were not spoken, or announced through an intercom. He listened true to his thoughts. There was no particular voice associated with the command to come downstairs. It was a simple knowledge that had been injected into his mind. Come to think of it, Sheldon didn't actually hear anything, nor could he feel the mattress under him, or his own hand on his face. Was he deaf? Numb? Like a getting better alternative, Sheldon left the bedroom, walked down the hallway towards the staircase. The house was familiar, but not. The room he had left he had recognized as his bedroom. But now he thought about it, there had been things out of place. A piece of memorabilia here, an action figure there, or missing or in the wrong spots. Now, in the hallway, Sheldon wasn't sure where he was anymore. The building looked superficially like his own home, but had some design elements of Jenny's house melded in them. On top of that, everything looked unrealistically simplistic, so you were living in a cartoon. Passing by an exterior window, Sheldon peeked outside and saw only a pale white light. There was no terrain, no backyard, or even fluffy white clouds with angels sitting on them, perhaps starving their hearts. It's just blank white void. Perturbed, Sheldon moved on downstairs. Stopping before he reached the bottom, Sheldon wondered if he couldn't be a little more cautious. His life was a fairly weird one after all. Or had been, if being dead was the case here. If this wasn't the afterlife, though, it could have been about anything else, possibly hostile.
It's okay. Keep going.
Words entered his mind again, and Sheldon called out, "Who are you?"
This is Jenny, silly. SG9. Wave hello.
Jenny, where am I? Sheldon asked, confused.
You're in my mother's lab. Well, it's Bug's lab, really. But Mom has a tendency to take things over wherever she goes. At least your brain is. You're not much to look at right now. Not much more than a motherboard and a block of hard drives. But I really missed you. So Mom let me hook you up to Mom's computer and chat with you using the keyboard for a little bit. Most of your memory accessory systems are still offline, though. But I accessed one of your smell memory files that was flagged important to wake you up.
Sheldon sat down on the stairs, taking it all in. Jenny typed, "I miss you, sweetie," and he felt a wave of comfort sweep over him. So, this is a memory, like before?
Most of your memories are offline right now. Mom wants to give him a fire sleep first. I made this little dream house for you using an old CAD program that Mug had.
Oh, that explains some things. Sheldon nodded, his mind abuzz with speculation. Perhaps he should ask Jenny to drop to him a spa while she was at.
I could do that, but you wouldn't be able to enjoy it until we turn your nerves back on.
How did you know what I was thinking? Sheldon asked out loud.
Says up on my screen, silly. Twinkling thoughts.
Oh, great. Why not just tell him not to think of a pink elephant while she was at? Well, as tempting it might be to sift through his favorite fantasies about Jenny, at the moment Sheldon was more concerned about his physical situation. Living in Jenny's electronic dollhouse might be a fun novelty for a little while, but Sheldon had a close enough brush with becoming a vegetable in the past already. He did not relish the idea of remaining an electronic brain in a jar hooked up to someone's PC.
Oh, don't worry about that. My parents have been really busy working on you. The new you, I mean. Here, go to the window. I snapped a few disco pictures.
Sheldon climbed back to the stairs as he was told, approaching the blank white window. For a few seconds later, the window fuzzed out. It was replaced by a still image of Nora Wakeman and Phineas Mullock over a lab bench, working hard on something. The image blurred again. It became a clearer shot of what they were working on. Sheldon saw himself. Only it wasn't himself. It looked like the Wakemans were still building him a new robot body, modeled after his original human one. It was composed of the same gray metal, and a few other small features of the silver cell design were still visible as well. Sheldon had hoped that meant that Nora had actually copied part of his silver cell designs. It was a huge compliment for such a genius to accept one of his innovations as comparable to her own. Other than that, though, The robot looked just like him, with a couple small improvements. His teeth were straightened for one, and posture had been as well. Sheldon also suspected Nora might have given him a bit of a nose job, too.
She wanted to give you a little bow tie in the front of your neck, too, but I made sure she didn't change too much. I want you just the way I remember you.
Thanks, Sheldon said aloud, though he supposed he didn't have to, really. Sheldon was surprised and impressed. Judging by the pictures, Nora must have been horrific to get smallest let's done in the last... Wait a minute. How long had it been since Jane's labor?
A little over 3 months.
3 months, Sheldon blurted out.
Well, what happened? With Brad and the baby. Oh my god. Brit's taken care of, thanks in no part to you. The rest of our friends are doing okay, for the most part. My house was destroyed, and the Carbuncle's house was condemned due to structural instabilities, but the government is paying to have them rebuilt. In the meantime, we've all been staying at Mug's place. By that I mean me, you, your brain anyway, Mom, Mug, and Tug, at least at first. It's been a little cramped living here. We even had to turn the garage workshop into a nursery. My mom is doing fine. She seems to have gotten better with Phineas Mugg, which makes sense. Still a little creepy. I just can't think of my mom as being someone who has an interest in guys. You both spend a lot of time in the nursery, but never not working on your new body. I think you like taking care of our baby together. It's probably important to their research or something. I've gone back to school, which is a whole other story. I worked out a deal with Vice Principal Raditsky to make up for all the classes I missed. Basically, I'm taking a placement credit as a teacher's aide in elementary school. It's neat, since I never went to elementary school. And actually, when I graduate, I've been thinking I might get more into teaching as a career. But it is a whole lot of extra work. Between that and midnight feeds, I don't get as much as time as I would like. Brad, Tiff, and Missy had to stay in the hospital for a while. Brad got out first. It was mostly just a broken hand. He's real fairly fast now for some reason. Only after a couple of days. And a lot of time was the doctors poking at his chest guards, trying to figure out what was going on there. But so far it's a mystery. And Brad doesn't like hospitals, so he didn't stick around to find out. Tiff was in the hospital for a lot longer. She has broken bones and had a pretty bad concussion. When she got out, she went back to her old house for the time being. Missy's still there right now. She got hurt the worst. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, a punctured lung, the works. She'll be okay, but it's harder for her because Earth doctors aren't well trained to handle an alien patient. Brad's technically been living with us since he got out, but he was spending most of his time at the hospital. Nowadays he sleeps over at Tiff's house a lot too, but he still comes back here to spend time with Tuck and me. Tuck was pretty traumatized by this whole thing. He's okay when Brad's around, but when he's not, Tuck tends to need a lot of attention from me and Mom. He's seeing some counselors about the death of his parents. Weirdly, though, he's been a lot of help with the baby. I think Mom's been teaching him some stuff about robotics and repair programming. Speaking of which, will you come downstairs? Someone's wanting to meet you. Sheldon jumped to his feet and wasted no time in getting downstairs. In the place of the living room he had been inspecting, Sheldon found himself in a nursery. The walls were pink, with pink curtains on the windows and flower pots hanging from the ceiling with pink blossoms. The corners of the room were overflowing with stuffed animals and bundles of pink balloons with congratulations written on them. In the center of it all was a baby's cradle, with a mobile hanging overhead. Sheldon approached almost reverently and peered inside. Looking out were two bright blue eyes, staring at the most perfect little face Sheldon could imagine. "Bah!" the little baby started. Sheldon smiled and nodded. "Yep, bah, that's right," he agreed, picking up the tiny human baby in his arms. "Aw, you two are so sweet together." "What's her name?" Sheldon asked. Already the baby was a girl. Jean, or Jelly. I don't sell completely. I want to get your input first, but I've been using June mostly. June is fine, said Sheldon, smiling from ear to ear. He was floored by how happy he was. Didn't think it was possible to feel this proud. Doesn't she something? Be gentle. She was born premature, so she's rather delicate. Mom says she'll grow out of that when she turns XJ2, though. Yeah, the terrible XJ2s, I'll bet. Sheldon laughed. Looking forward to it anyway. He was already looking forward to every moment he'd get to share with his new daughter, even the bad ones. He could hardly wait to begin his new life with his new family. It shouldn't be too long until your new body's ready. Ready. Sorry. Typo. Tuck just punched my arm. Sheldon wasn't paying too much attention anymore.
more interested in making funny faces for his daughter, getting her to smile for him. So he reflexively grabbed hold of his fingertip when he moved in front of her face, showing excellent hand-eye coordination, and a strong grip, too. Delicate? Sheldon had a hard time believing that.
I gotta go for now, hon. Doug says there's something about a cluster ship I need to take care of. Be back later, though. You can play nice now.
Before, Sheldon had been worried about becoming trapped with his own mind for any length of time. Now he didn't think he'd mind at all. He welcomed as much time as he could have to spend with this marvelous little lady in his arms. Standing in front of the computer, Jenny minimized the window using the CAD program hooked up to Sheldon's mind. There had been very little supervillain activity in Tremonton in the weeks following Britain's attack. What there had been, Jenny was able to take care of easily enough. The muckraker was nothing compared to a new mother's diaper duties. A truck led Jenny out into the street where the cluster ship had touched down. Jenny smiled and continued to think about Sheldon and her daughter. She was very happy to finally given Sheldon a chance to meet the baby, and for June to have her first meeting with her father. It's a terrible shame that Brett's attack kept them apart for so long. But then again, June had already repaid Brett for that. It was long after the ordeal was done that everyone found out exactly what happened to Brett that day. It happened one day after Tiff had been released from the hospital and started to regain her strength back. Jenny was determined to make good on her promise to become fair friends with Tiff, and arranged a dinner with Brad to get them all together socializing again. After dinner, Jenny dropped the first bombshell of the evening by asking Tiff if she would be June's godmother.
But me? Tiff sputtered, completely perplexed. But I don't even go to church. I'm not really concerned with June's religious education. Sheldon and I aren't really religious either. It's not something that's important to us, but I think he'd be a good role model,
Jenny explained. Like a tell from Tiff's expression, she needed to go into more detail.
What I mean is, you've had some pretty tough times in your life. Some bad influence.
They didn't often refer to Britt by name anymore. Didn't seem polite, and brought up a lot of bad memories.
But despite you still turned out as you are today, and I think it makes you very qualified. Plus, you helped deliver June. I like to remain as important person in her life. I know Brad agrees.
Tiff shot Brad an accusing glare, declaring,
You put the idea in her head, didn't ya?
Trying to escape the new responsibility, Tiff burned out.
But I wasn't even that good at the buffet. When I was holding her, it was another minute before she was already stuck by that subernized thing in her mouth. What did you say?
Jenny asked. This new information suddenly sparking a fresh connection and a mystery. Tiff shrank, receiving the past blunder.
I'm sorry, but this proves I ain't responsible enough to be the godmother. Who knows what kind of crap that baby might swallow when I'm watching her?
Shortly after, Norrell had run a test of XG1's data cache against the backups that Noah could store in his lab. It didn't take much to confirm it. Jenny's baby downloaded the kill switch program into itself when it suckled the delivery mechanism. It's simply taking in any sources of data was presented. The XG1's body was underdeveloped because of the early birth. New schematic data, such as the specs for the dagger, were quickly incorporated into the baby's still growing body. In this case, transforming June's tooth into a replica of the kill switch weapon's tip. But when she had been printed a short while later, once again in the process of seeking out more data from her mother's breast, the kill switch program was uploaded to Britt's separate schematics and went to work shutting them down. Jenny lost the memory from her mind. She was happy that they eventually convinced Tiff to accept the position, but at that moment, Jenny had to focus on superhero business. Tuck and Jenny stepped to the street, where Noah, Brad, Logan, and Tiff were already gathered. The cluster, even when Vex is gone, always presented a potential threat. It's a good sign that the ship hadn't started blasting, but you never know. The front hatch opened with a hiss, and extended a long metal ramp down the street. When its occupant was out in the light, Jenny couldn't help but smile.
Vega!
She called. She up the ramp to give her old friend a welcome hug.
Hey, Jenny!
Vega responded, wrapping her arms around Jenny to return the hug and give her a European-style kiss on each cheek. Pulling away, she looked Jenny over and commented, Well, I see you've been through some changes. But how are you? You never call, you never write.
I'm good. There's a lot to tell you, but to summarize, I'm doing very good.
Jenny explained, leading Vega from her ship down the street.
Means to Earth. I know I already missed your sister's wedding.
It's actually related to that, and the war back on Cluster. Vega frowned, waited until everyone was in her side until she continued. I guess you probably already know that civil wars were basically ended when Nexus took the throne by marrying YK9. I've been overseeing the quashing of the last few minor warlords in their uprising, while King Kenneth cemented their rule by siring a legitimate heir. For the last couple of months, it seemed like the last of the war was over, and everyone was awaiting the birth of Nexus's litter.
Later?
Jenny asked, lifting one eyebrow. Nearby Mug scratched his chin, muttering, Must be a side effect of the canine portion of his programming.
5 pups all together. 3 boys, 2 girls. Everyone was thrilled. The royal bloodline is healthy and thriving again.
Vegas' final fight, though, got bad news. And then, out of nowhere, Brutus shows up again. Caesar went into hiding when his faction started losing the war, and met up with an old crony of my mother's, a scientist by the name of Crackus.
Leave Matt,
Jay and Danny, mostly for Vega to continue. So, since he's got nothing to lose and everything to gain by unleashing some anarchy into the Empire, Brutus had Crackus invent this contagious rust that affects robots and turns them into, like, zombies. A contagious rust that affects robots and turns them into zombies. Excuse me. Next is here. It's called a Autobot Matrix of Leadership. You take that, you aim it, trust me, you'll be fine. Robot zombies that consume the metal from healthy robots to keep themselves going. They spread like a plague, and now several planets are infected, including Cluster Prime. The whole situation's out of control. I only barely escaped, but the rest of the royal family is still trapped on Cluster Prime. They need help. Well, it'd been a nice vacation, but Jenny Steady would never truly leave her. To be honest, she was getting hungry for some decent superheroing again.
Don't worry, Vega. I'll just say goodbye to my fiancé and daughter, and we'll go see your flight right away.
Actually, Vega stated, her tone showing apprehension, I came to Earth to ask Brad for help.
What?
Brad exclaimed to Jenny. Vega struggled to explain.
Well, I know you're some sort of superhero around here,
but on Cluster Prime you'd be just another victim of the Rust Plague. But Brad saved the Earth from my mother's invasion, and took her down again aboard her own flagship. The battle became the turning point in Nexus' rebellion, and he ended his successive wars by bringing YK9 to the cluster. Plus, he'd be naturally immune to the plague. The zombies won't see him as a force of food, and
Okay, I get it,
Jane said, raising a hand to stop Figure from going on about Brad's many qualifications. Meanwhile, Brad was looking pretty damn pleased with himself.
Well, Brad, will you come with me, save the cluster?
Vega pleaded.
I'm the only hope to save a planet from a horde of robot zombies from space?
Let me think about that, Brad told sarcastically. Obviously, it was a dream come true. Even saying it out loud was it sounded like the title of a drive-in science fiction double feature. Vega didn't seem to quite understand that the question was rhetorical. Well, not the only hope. The Empire does have other resources. We just thought that you'd be the best option you probably want.
I'll do it!
Brad exclaimed, cutting her off.
Great!
Vega exclaimed happily. My ship can take us back to Cluster Prime if we were going to give you some of our technology to help you get to Brutus and the antidote.
Wait. This isn't going to be just a day trip, is it?
Brad began, his presence souring.
I can't just leave. I got responsibilities here. People care about me.
With this, Brad indicated the others there, particularly Tiff and his little brother. Tiff stepped forward, chiming in.
Actually, I could go with you, you know. Don't look so surprised. Not like I got a wild going on around here except for you, I mean.
Tiff explained. Jane at least understood. Without Brad around, Tiff no longer occupied a position of any great importance in the school or around town. Tiff's aunt and uncle were never close with her anyway. A situation only now grown worse now that Britt wasn't around. Compared to that, an adventure in space sounded like a whole lot of fun. But there was a whole other factor to consider.
Tuck, buddy, what do you say?
Asked Brad, crouching down to Nex.
Will you be okay if I go off to space for a while?
Tuck looked fearful, clearly not wanting his brother to go. Unlike the rather fearless Tiff, Tuck applies to the slightest provocation. Screaming in terror was one of his strongest skills. He knew he couldn't tag along like Tiff. He spent the entire trip getting rescued by Brad, that he ruined their chance of stopping the plague. But he didn't want to be separated from his big brother either. Brad was the only family that Tuck had left, He didn't want the cluster consumed by some cyber horde, but he couldn't bear to be around Brad alone.
No, Brad, I won't.
A gentle hand touched Tuck's back. Glancing over, Tuck saw big Mrs. Wakeman. She stood next to him. Next to her was Moog, holding Nora's hand. She said nothing, but her motherly smile made it clear to Tuck. He couldn't be so selfish as to deny an entire planet to Savior, just so he can have his brother around to protect him. Tuck swallowed hard and forced the words out of his mouth.
Go ahead, I'll be fine.
Tuck smiled. Brad smiled and nodded, accepting the answer. Tuck felt just a little more grown up. Years later, Jenny looked back on that day as a major turning point in her life. All their lives, really. She wouldn't have known it at the time, though. The next day, things had returned largely to normal. School to attend, villains to trounce, diapers to change, but the ramifications of Brad choosing to go to space were still being felt to this day. Brad had been right when he guessed the trip would not be a short one. The Rust zombie crisis was only the first of many. By the end of it all, Brad was regarded by the citizenry of the Cluster Prime as the genuine superhero, every bit as exotic and alien to them as Jenny was regarded on Earth. He never did come back to get a high school's diploma, but he didn't mind. Being personal friends with the king and queen of the cluster meant he had access to a fully paid scholarship to any several hundred top schools in a dozen different planets. Well, Vulcan! Brad was a poor student, but he remained enrolled anyway, picking up new skills and knowledge by transferring from school to school, planet to planet. And everywhere he went, Tiff followed, evidenced by the latest letter Jenny had received.
Thank goodness Tiff writes clearer than she talks.
Jenny commented to herself, though her words were heard by another. Bounding into the room came June, still wearing her soccer uniform for soccer practice. Unlike her mother, Jenny had no problem with letting June out to socialize with other children. In fact, she encouraged it ever since June turned XJ5 and started learning how to relate to others. Jenny liked to think that this decision as a parent was largely responsible for June's present state of development. Right now, June was in her XJ6 stage of growth. Rather than becoming super envious as Jenny had been at that age, June was hyper-competitive. Hence, soccer practice, into debate team, and chess club, and gymnastics class, and choir, and all the other school clubs that June had signed herself up for. It still caused some problems, but less so than Jenny suspected she would be if June had been homeschooled like Jenny was.
What's he beating, Ma?
June asked, grabbing a can of oil from the top of her fridge to floor levels. Jenny winced as June spoke, voice raised to a piercing squeak at the word reading. Pulling the rambunctious robot girl over to her, Jenny spoke,
It's a letter from your grandmother. Want me to read it to you?
June nodded enthusiastically. Jenny continued,
Then settle down and open your mouth. I can hear your fuckle cysts are out in again. I'm going to take a look and try to realign them for you.
June sat on her mother's lap, forcing herself to behave while she bared her expensive orthodontics for inspection. It wasn't really clear to Jenny why June needed corrective implants to keep her naturally high voice from rising to glass-shattering pitches. It's less clear to her why the artistic braces she had paid so much for broke down so frequently. But her husband was the technical-minded one in the household, and he assured that it was just a bug in June's design, probably work itself out by the time she was an XJ7.
Dear Jenny,
Jenny began to recite the letter, while simultaneously scanning a screwdriver from her fingertip, trying to tighten June's braces with.
Spring is here at Cluster 4, where Brad and I are staying. We're both doing well and enjoying the diverse scenery and population of this world. Unlike most cluster-controlled planets, Cluster 4 was a sizable, non-robotic population decided to immigrate here after the fall of Texas. Plus, it's nice because it allows Brad and me to easily blend into the crowd when we want to, even though the other aliens don't resemble humans. I'm taking a class in experimental culinary techniques, while Brad is taking some philosophy and cultural studies stuff, as well as training at Missy's dojo as usual. It's light in terms of homework, but after saving the whole of Cluster Empire last semester, Brad and I both needed a break. Who would have thought that little Kilgore could become a huge threat? I can still hardly believe it. It's Kilgore, Mom, June squeaked, moving her mouth, frustrating Jenny's repair attempt. Holding June's mouth in place, Jenny answered, I'll start for another time. The key's still Juniper. Speaking of breaks, I hope you're still planning to come to visit us for the royal birthday celebration on Cluster Prime. If Brad and I are going to attend, then our Aunt Jenny should definitely be there. Since it's the birthday of all 5 siblings rolled into one, the whole planet's getting probably riled up for celebration. Plus, as need be said, we want to see our godchild again. Tell June and Sheldon we miss them, and I hope to see you soon. Tiffany Carbuncle. There, all done, Jenny said, going to his mouth to close. She and Sheldon were still intending to go to Cluster Prime, though the birthday celebration was such a convenient excuse for the trip. Really, Jenny wasn't all that close with Kenny and thought of him more as a stepbrother than a real sibling. Since they had grown up apart, they didn't have a lot of time to bond before Kenny moved away from Earth. It would still be good to see Brad again, and he and Tiff were fun to double date with and talk about the newly married situation. Jenny also made time to drop in on Missy, spending some girl bonding time with her, while back a small taste of the single life. Kind of tickled pink by the news she would get to go on a trip to see Cluster Prime and her step-cousins again. June never complained, "But there's still a more letter you didn't read." Jane gave her daughter a wide smile, held the letter out of her daughter's reach. "Well, there is some postscript to it, but I don't think you want to hear what's in that." June looked up with Jenny with big brown eyes. How great the puppy dog looked. Tuck had taught this trick to June when she was an XJ5, and Jenny's been paying for it ever since. "Please," June begged. Knowing she would get her way, she kept going up long enough. On knowing Jai, Jenny caved to continue reading. "Just between us girls, you might want to keep an eye on June while she's here. During your last visit, I noticed some signs that made me think June might have a crush on Prince Canis. From the way Canis talks, I think the crush might be mutual. It's adorable and all, but he's still a prince. Parents would be embarrassed if the paparazzi catches their son picking up a certain young girl's skirt or mooching in the palace garden. Wouldn't normally be worried about Canis, except I know June is the sort of girl that's liable to encourage that sort of behavior. So just keep her on a short leash." "Well, are you happy now?" Jenny asked, while June brushed furiously and hid her face against her mother's dress. "No," June said flatly, wanting to sink into a hole and die. The whole situation amused Jenny quite a bit, though I think her sometimes accept it. Nor had been right in that familiar relationships between robots really were different from humans. So the whole kissing cousin situation didn't bother Jenny as much as it would have otherwise. Even if Nora had been right, Kenny and his kids were from the YK series of robots. It had sufficiently different design lineages, couldn't be any concerns with inbreeding anyway. Not to mention the royal litter were hot cluster as well. Peeking one eye open, Jane looked up to her mother and asked, "Are you doing that thing today? The operation?" It wasn't hard to see that June was simply trying to change the topic to something less embarrassing for her, but Jane didn't mind. "Yep, that's the thing. I just been getting through all the little errands I had to run. I forgot about them afterwards." The operation Jenny was referring to was the upgrade to XJ10, but for real this time. It had taken a long time, but after 6 years the new body was ready. So was Jenny. No one could say she was rushing into this. In fact, a total of 11 years as XJ9, Jenny had spent more time as a teenager than any other human had. And even after the body was ready, Jenny had put it off until she was finished with college. But nowadays, Jenny was starting to look rather diminutive compared to her human friends, and also she would still get carded when going out when everyone else wasn't given a second look. Jenny had her degrees, her happy domestic life, and was getting ready to enter the working world, the adult world. Jenny knew it was finally time to trade up and move on. She would have liked to feel nostalgic, or sit around looking at photo albums for a little while longer, remembering her teenage years. But Jenny found herself too excited to put it off any longer. Sitting out Jenny's lap, June took off to work to do her homework, or play, or otherwise occupy herself. Similarly, Jenny decided it was time she got up and went to see Sheldon in his lab. Since Mrs. Lakeman retired, it hadn't taken long for Sheldon to rise to a position she formerly held as top robotics authority on Earth. Technically, he had not finished his doctorate yet. Most everybody took to calling him Doc Lee anyway. Everyone except for Jenny, of course. To her, he would always be Sheldon, though that didn't stop her from calling him Shell or Shellhead, or many other nicknames she had for him. With the many research grants and scholarships Sheldon had, it was no big deal for him to equip his own private machine lab in their garage. If she wanted, Jenny too could have easily been a homemaker, or devote herself to superheroing full-time, trusting that Sheldon's income would have been more than enough to support their family. Her career was important to her, but no one say that modern robotic woman, properly fueled, couldn't balance her career with her home life. "We're just about ready to go,"
said Sheldon, as he arranged the tools in the lab. The SC-10 body already powered up and waiting for Jane's brain to inhabit it. Jane watched him bustle about, dressed in a lab coat and puffing away at his pipe. It wasn't really a tobacco pipe, of course. A robot wouldn't have derived any pleasure from inhaling nicotine. Shelley merely fastened a field-burning device into the likeness of a pipe, as part of an effort to appear more scholarly and father-like. Sheldon's idea of fatherhood seemed to originate in the 1930s. Nevertheless, the chemical process was more akin to eating than smoking. He saw it had no effects on herself or June, so Jane didn't mind. Jane closed her eyes and relaxed, preparing herself to shut down so Sheldon could get to work. The body-swapping process was less daunting for her than it was for Sheldon, which shouldn't surprise anyone. Both times had been pretty traumatic experiences for Sheldon, who nearly lost his life on each occasion. Jane, on the other hand, it was so old hat she didn't even remember living in her younger bodies. Like getting a haircut, it doesn't become a forgettable experience. Despite her calm, a sudden crash made her bolt upright from the table.
Sorry, Mom!
Came June's call from somewhere outside the backyard. On the lab floor lay June's baseball, surrounded by the shattered glass of the window. Oh, I'll get that. Murray Sheldon as he hurried out to clean up the mess. We'll have to talk to June about being more careful with her sports equipment.
It's okay, Sheldon. Accidents happen,
Jenny said, uneasily calm about the broken window. Somehow it seemed like a good omen. Like so many years back, baseball breaking the window was like the bottle broken against a ship hull before a long voyage. It had given her good luck back then, and Jenny had a feeling it would give her good luck now, too. She felt she might need it. After all, it was a big wide world out there, and Jenny couldn't wait to go out and meet it. The end. Review time.
This fic.
Oh god. This fic is pretty dang good. I mean, really good. It's one of those stories that I like to hold up as the pinnacle of how you could do plot with porn in it. However, it doesn't mean that there isn't problems with this. And I'd like to bring out a few of those errors right now. First of all, I gotta admit, I do have some problems with the idea that Moog helped make the XJ series. It kind of puts some very bad connotations in there if I were to look too deeply into it. I mean, I get that it was supposed to show a father and mother thing, making Jenny and all that, but at the same time, with the idea of YK9 and all that, it makes me feel like this thing is a little sexist, because it's basically having a guy do part of the work and not allowing the woman to get a word in edgewise. It kind of puts some bad feelings in my head. I know the author probably didn't mean it, but it's still there. And while I love the sex scenes, and while this thing did really good on them, I can't help but feel like there were too many at some points. Like, at some points I felt like these certain chapters would have been better if the sex was removed so I could get to the more interesting stuff. But that's neither here nor there. I do love them. And I know some people might be turned off by the rape scenes. They were discomforting, but hey, rape is disgusting. It is a horrible crime, so yeah, it's not erotic and it shouldn't be portrayed as such. I also feel like there's a little problem with the end fight. While it was great, it was cool, and much like the rest, the fight scenes were really well done. I can't help but feel like it should have ended with XJ9's body being the one that was destroyed. Then Brett in anger destroys Jenny's home, and then Jenny arises in her XJ10 body after protecting Sheldon and June. would have given for some far more awesome scenes, and it would have made it so much more clear that Jenny had moved on to the next stage of her life. And would have been far better symbolically, and it would have been a cool anime-like scene, Jenny rising from the rubble of her destroyed home and then kicking butt. Speaking of which, I kind of wish it was Jenny that delivered the killing blow to Britt, not the baby. But I've always had that kind of problem. Please see me in Graduation, where I was a little bit peeved that it wasn't Kim who took down the big bad, but were unstoppable. I've always had a problem with that type of moment. I've always had a problem with that type of scene. And I feel like it takes away from the main hero. Another problem for me in this is the use of Tuck's mom and dad and their death. Quite frankly, I felt like it was not needed. Like, the moment we saw his parents die, I almost felt like pulling off a nostalgia critic joke and going, and now a moment of silence for the Carbuncles. Okay, moving on. I mean, there was no mention of them, no word of them. I mean, yeah, it sucked for Brad and Tuck, but that's because they are the characters I care about and not the parents. There was just nothing there, and really, unlike some other deaths of parents where it could have actually meant something, this really did feel like it was just there just to say, hey, Britt is so serious, yo, she's a mass murderer, it's getting serious, yo. That's it. Beyond that, there was no point. And while I got the introduction of Misty, it only provided another problem. God was Misty had shown up earlier, or Fexus, or some of the other girl characters that Jenny had become friends with. Why? Because I feel like this fic could have done so much more if we had Jenny have a girl to bond with. Become friends with. So that way she could talk to someone other than her mother about these inherent problems that she might be having. Because let's face it, there are some things you just don't talk with your parents about, and I would have loved to have seen some of that. Speaking of Jenny and her as a character, I'm glad that while the story does a good job of trying to show us a girl in a burgeoning sexuality, I do kind of wish that we encountered other forms of sexual exploration. And the awesome fic that is the Romance Reports, we see Twilight explore her own sexuality by trying things out, experimenting with a female and experimenting with a male to see what she likes, to see what for her was the most pleasurable. And finally figuring out, hey, maybe I like girls. I kind of would have liked to have seen at least one scene of that, because of all the different sexualities we saw in here, I didn't see any lesbians or gay sex in this. And no, this is not me trying to say lesbians are hot, but it would have been nice to see some other explorations of sexuality, considering the fact that Jenny was investigative and trying to figure out how things worked. Also would have loved to have seen beforehand Jenny having to deal with maybe a monthly discharge of her systems that she needed to work out through. Yeah, every time I mention a period joke on my show, I feel like every single one of my female viewers is ready to kill me. But now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about all the positives of the story. The sex scenes, again, are really well done. All of them were very erotic. And I gotta applaud this story for showing that during the rape scenes, it's not just women that get raped. It's also guys, too. It also shows the different variations, like, say, a guy not being hypnotized, or a guy being forced to because of pain, or just because he didn't want it. I kind of enjoyed that. I also liked how this showed the difference between the good type of lovemaking, when it's freely given, versus the bad kind, or what bad people experience. For example, when Jenny was raped, it was horrifying, it was disgusting. Jenny felt powerless and out of character. And when Britt started doing it, it felt, well, there was nothing there. It felt like there was still pleasure to be had here, just power. The same could be said of Tiff. When she was evil, she was referring that she didn't get any pleasure out of sex. She wasn't enjoying it. She wasn't liking it. But when she started falling for Brad and became good, she started enjoying it and actually gave herself willingly to Brad. Speaking of Britt, I do love her villainous intake. Show just how bad off one can get when they lose all that power. I also love Vexus. It was really nice, and I liked watching her being cruel and vindictive, while at the same time somewhat sexy. I also really enjoyed the cameos and the insert references, though if I may complain about there, I would have loved it if we had at least one reference to Mega Man. You know, Dr. Light, maybe Dr. Cossack, something in there. I mean, come on, who wouldn't have loved to have seen the Blue Bomber show up at least once? All these other robot references? Maybe even Kikator. I mean, I could probably understand maybe the author didn't watch that much Tokusatsu and probably didn't think about bringing in Kikator, because I've actually seen Kikator, but that's only because I'm a diehard Tokusatsu fan. And while this thing was 20 chapters long, with that one chapter 23 reaching about 2 hours long on this channel, I really did not feel it at all. It felt like it knew how to move to a plot, get to the plot going, and actually keep focus on the story. And it also kept us moving on a brisk and good fast pace. And yeah, while I had my complaints earlier, I do like seeing Nora get some, and I like seeing how the other characters treat their own romances. And while I could have done with one more reference or two, seeing these references made the world feel that much more expansive. And I do like that there were some that so many people probably didn't even catch. Like, for instance, when Jenny was talking about getting her intake valve done through her pruder, but none of you realized that was actually an Astro Boy reference. The characterizations on this were really well done. I mean, it's not every day that this fic makes me actually appreciate the Sheldon and Jenny ship. What? I'm sorry, all you Sheldon and Jenny shippers, but when I watched the original show, Sheldon did come off frequently like he just cared about Jenny as a robot and that he was just a robophile. It never felt like he cared for Jenny as a person. Until at least the Christmas episode. And I know that a lot of people said that Jenny and Sheldon were the endgame, but season 3 better have had to show off more of their connection, more of their bond, and develop them more as characters before I could actually build on it. For example, this fic does a really good job on it. Actually shows that there was more that Sheldon had more feelings for her outside of just, oh my god, it's a robot, I can finally bang it. It actually showed that Sheldon cared about Jenny, which made it work. I also like Brad's characterization. It showed the other side of the breakup. If our earlier story, Maternal Instinct, showed the more amicable side between two friends breaking up, this showed the downer side. What happens if it's rough, if it's not taken care of, and if it's not handled well? A lot of pain, a lot of words hurt. But, like some examples I can name, this actually did show how it can end. With two friends, doesn't mean that their friendship is more important than their romance or even their being fuck buddies. I also loved Misty's addition at the end, though it did come unexpected. I also like the additions of the stories that happened after this fic got started, it did feel natural. Danny's character was also well done. After all, she was explored well, and she is a inquisitive girl. I like seeing how it was actually a girl who wanted to try to experience what sex was, and trying to learn what her own sexuality is. Even if I do kind of wish it was more to it. I also liked how this fic decided to explain each one of the modifications to the XJ series to demonstrate why each one was the way they were. Quite an interesting way to look at the human growth patterns. All in all, this fic was great. Join us next time when I might bring in some degree Pokemon. One down, fastest more to go. See you all next time.